when you work with a system as a W-2 employee in a conglomerate, and it's more of the corporate medicine, you're told how many patients you're going to see. You're told how long you're going to have with the visits. Patient satisfaction scores can negatively impact you. And that's not why any of us went to medical school. Mm-hmm. You can't fit a peg into a square hole, or you can't fit a square into a round hole. Mm-hmm. The pieces just don't fit, because we know that we have more chronicity of disease. We have more complications because we're living longer with more diseases. And there are a lot of psychosocial factors. You can't squeeze all of that into a 15-minute window.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today, we get to talk with Dr. Sapna Shah-Haque, an internal medicine physician and the host of the Worthy Physician podcast. Dr. Shah-Haque is passionate about addressing physician burnout and finding paths to balance, including alternative solutions like real estate. Well, welcome to the show, Sapna. So happy to have you here, and we've made it. We got some technical difficulties out of the way, but we're up and rolling now. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
It always puts a little, just a little sprinkles on top of the first conversation when you have with somebody, when you have that technical difficulty, the microphone or the speakers or.
Yeah, but if that's the worst that happens today, that's a good day.
Optimism. Well, let's go. Let's keep that as the platform here. All right. So first of all, can you share a little bit with the listeners about your medical journey and what inspired you to create the Worthy Physician podcast?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. When I first came out of residency, had a great job, right? And I still love the experience because it taught me what to do and what not to do. And through all circumstances, as long as we learn, we can grow and develop from that. But I hit my first wall of burnout, I would say, toward year 2.5 to 3 out of residency and practice. Why? Was what we call a comprehensivist or traditionalist, doing inpatient, outpatient, and on top of that, almost to a sandwich generation of having ailing parents. So having to juggle all of that really put me in a position where I had to choose one or the other. And so I chose family, and they were very understanding, but I took a position where I didn't have any calls or weekends. Fast forward 4 years from that, added 2 kids, the pandemic, and still a parent with ailing health. On top of that, unfortunately, my best friend from medical school and residency died by suicide in her office in 2019.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's like, what in the world do you do with that? What would drive somebody to that has an amazing profession? It's a beautiful profession. But then I started reading, and I learned about the suicide rates of physicians, at least 400 a year. So that's 2 medical school classes a year, and that's only here in the United States. Mm-hmm. The rate of burnout or moral injury is quite high, and we've seen it get higher, through the pandemic. I would say even post-pandemic. It's getting better, but close to 3/4 of physicians had at least one sign or symptom of burnout. But going back to 2019, 2020, when I started to approach the first year of Dr. Bicker's death anniversary, I really didn't know how to process that, because it is something that is just so profound and something that we shouldn't have to deal with in medicine. And her suicide, the closest to a suicide note, went into detail as to why she did not want to disclose certain illnesses that she had because she was afraid of professional repercussion. And that just really shook me to my core, to the point of I did put myself in counseling or therapy, as well as worked with a life coach. But how do you swallow that pill? Like, that's a reality of medicine. That's a reality of physicians. And it's not just a caveat that physicians have. We also hear that in other health professionals, but focusing on physicians, because that's what I do, and that's what Dr. Bicker did. That is why I started the Worthy Physician, because I wanted to know why. How relevant is this? Why aren't we talking about this? Because if this is truly a barrier to physicians being well and staying well, it needs to be at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that direct connection with not only being a physician, but that loss, that direct connection. So that's fueling the fire. And now you have the chance to, like you said, talk about it, have these conversations. So in your experience, what are some of the biggest drivers of burnout in healthcare?
Besides the system and besides the culture of medicine, most of us go into medicine wanting to help people, but with the different hoops that we have to jump through, and with good reason, to become a physician, the debt and then the responsibility that we choose to take on. There is a big personality of perfectionism. There's a big driver of, I have to know all the answers. I have to get this right. Because in medicine, we're humans, I understand that, but we have big responsibility. So I think a lot of the personality traits that push people into medicine at some point become not helpful. They become destructive. So no, I don't have to work 100 hours a week to prove that I'm worthy as a physician, right? And so we also get into the mentality that this is all I am. And so it's more of a pigeonhole. Okay, this is the box I chose. This is the box I'm going to stay in. And we tend to not think outside the box. Like, the skills that I've learned in medical school and along the way are transferable and translatable to other areas in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that identity piece is tough. And it goes along with so many other people who also struggle with similar challenges as well, too. The identity of, I am this makes me. So it's definitely a challenge. I was thinking, and I've had conversations like this before, something where, the world of real estate can be kind of like this avenue out. In my mind, granted, I'm not a physician. I'm not in that challenging. I'm not up against burnout. I can burn myself out 100% because I'm a high performer. I get fixated and I have identity issues with success and all of those things. And I do see real estate as this path. It could be this path out of the ditch, the grind. But at the same time, while we're having this conversation, I'm thinking, I just want to caution people too, because if you're not at the root, if you're not attacking the root of the issue, then everything else is just going to be adding to it or covering it up, one of the two. So going into real estate could also even make the burnout even heavier. What do you think about that?
Real estate is not as easy as what it seems to be, because you have to make sure that, I think, you're picking the right liability in order to leverage it. It's not just you can buy something on the street corner and turn around and make it a profit. So I think that, as in any other ways that you're making a decision, you have to make it with a clear conscience and a clear mind and really know the risks and benefits, instead of, okay, I'm tired of doing X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to go over here and just jump all in. I think you have to approach it with caution. And if you're not at a good place to make that type of decision, particularly with the risks versus benefits, really, really cool your jets on that and push the brake. Mm-hmm. So I agree 100%, because if we're not in a good space to make daily decisions, or if we have decision fatigue, it can make it very difficult, I think, to think with our logical brain about a big decision, particularly a business decision.
Yeah. That identity piece and just kind of like stuck in that path. How much of the burnout in your experience is related to financial independence solely?
I'm thinking on that one, because I think the answer is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
For me, it is not just financial independence. It's a piece of it. I would say 50%, but I don't think I would quit practicing medicine the way I am. What it would allow me to do is to decrease those number of days that I'm available, or maybe taking extended vacation, which who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't quit medicine. It's even over all the bumpy parts, I've learned something from it. I've learned what to do and what not to do. I've learned boundaries. So if I were to apply that to financial independence, I can't say that for me, financial independence is the only driver. But I do think it is an important piece, because previously, physicians were, for the most part, not as employed through a healthcare system that really does not care about the patients. So you have a juxtaposition of a system that is really happy when people are really sick. And as physicians, we want to try to alleviate that and help our patients live a better and fuller quality of life. So you have a juxtaposition of values and what our goals are. But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you had more physicians that were in independent practice, owned their buildings. And so, it ties back to real estate. Like, there was more ownership in what we could and couldn't do versus outside sources that don't know anything about medicine, that don't know our patients, telling us what to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's a correlation then between the private practice ratio of burnout versus the W-2, the employee side of a ratio of burnout?
I think there might be a correlation, with a sense of I'm in a unicorn position, right? I can see myself retiring from where I'm at currently. But when you work with a system as a W-2 employee and a conglomerate, and it's more of the corporate medicine, you're told how many patients you're going to see. You're told how long you're going to have with the visits. Patient satisfaction scores can negatively impact you. And that's not why any of us went to medical school. Mm-hmm. You can't fit a peg into a square hole, or you can't fit a square into a round hole. Mm-hmm. The pieces just don't fit, because we know that we have more chronicity of disease. We have more complications because we're living longer with more diseases. And there are a lot of psychosocial factors. You can't squeeze all of that into a 15-minute window. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I would say that operating in that system is a nightmare, but it is reality. So we have to find workarounds, whatever those might be, and that's going to be individual and specialty specific. Yeah. Coming back to your question, there's the other side of if I own my own practice, then I really never take my hands off of it, because if I'm not seeing patients, I'm not getting paid.
Yeah, that ownership of practice, I think, again, from the outside looking in, it does feel like there's a bit of a pivot moving towards that. And there are some additional benefits there. Just it all comes down to perspective, though. Like just what you're saying, if I'm not seeing patients and I'm not making money, it just depends on how you're building the practice.
Right.
So, if you're a way to build the piece so you could focus on the things that only you could do, kind of thing. There are ways to make income outside of that. But in addition to that, there's other avenues as well too. As a private owner, you can own the real estate and then lease it to the medical practice, and then there's so much value. But it all comes back down to perspective. It's how we're seeing things, and the picture that we're painting in our brain, whether we know it or not. That's the picture we call reality too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting, and it ties back directly into the burnout piece, like how we started. And no, we talked a little bit before we started recording too, that you have kind of like that accidental landlord piece in the real estate investing world. And I wanted to see kind of where that tied in with your journey and when you bumped into burnout. How did those two timelines kind of play along with each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. It didn't really tie into it at all. It was more of a, so we had some rental properties, but we sold them in 2019. And, when I started out with this would turn into a kind of a project that my husband and I at the time could take on together. Or at the time we took on together, it was, okay, we can live here for a year and then turn it into a rental property. And it was a small 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath house. It was a great starting point. I wish I knew then what I know now, and maybe would have done it a little bit differently as far as like management.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun. It was something to do. It was extra income in a sense that somebody else was paying the mortgage. And it was fun until it wasn't, because we had some bad renters back to back.
Yeah.
And as a landlord, it would be nice to see some reform on that, because somebody else that you're trusting to live in your property completely trashes it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. I was just quite frustrated with the rules and regulations that we couldn't recoup some of the costs that we had to put in. Mm-hmm. But as the family was growing, that was more of the point in time where we decided to liquidate those in order to focus on our growing family. So it didn't really tie into the burnout at all. Actually, it gave me a way to look at something other than medicine. It gave me something else to do. It was fun until it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like that. I'm just always thinking of those like different avenues, just alternative paths of not only income, but like what you're saying there, the energy piece, fun until it wasn't. There's probably, in hindsight, there's some ways to mitigate some of those, but it's always stressful. There's no easy button. There's always going to be challenges, going to be problems. There's going to be bad renters. Yeah. Vacancies and damage on the turn is something that's painful. In those learning moments, something when I can share mine. Those learning moments of I did everything right. I signed the documents, I screened them, I did everything right. And then not being able to recoup some costs it's fascinating. It's mind blowing. That could be a whole podcast in of itself.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of kind of using this alternative path as an energy exchange as well too, laid out correctly. So doing the things that you want to do. If you're somebody that likes to go in and do a turn, and sometimes, pushing a shovel is just the most relaxing thing in the world to do, because you're choosing to do it and you don't have any other responsibilities at that time. In that moment, your energy is focused on moving dirt or moving paint. Something so simple in that manual labor piece could be that release of energy. But finding a path in real estate, like I say, not only in a financial alternative path, but in that energy piece of just being able to release and change that direction of where your mind is not stuck in the burnout piece. So there's some goods and some bads, but potential burnout as well too. In your experience, talking with others in the burnout piece and how it relates directly to real estate, with your experience in real estate, could you have any kind of like things to watch out for that could potentially or even unknowingly add to a burnout scenario for the listeners who may be kind of juggling a couple of different things right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go back to what I had said earlier is like, don't make a business decision or a decision to take on more liability if you're already struggling where you're at currently. So I would say unload some of the things that you don't necessarily need to be doing. Like, well, what's that? For an example, outsource what you can. So lawn mowing, which I prefer to do my own because I like cutting grass. I like being outside.
Yes.
I love it. But meal prep, house cleaning, when you get to the point that you can outsource that, do that, because then that frees up time that maybe you can create some white space and figure out what it is you actually want and need. And once you have a clear mental picture, then I would say absolutely at that point, then make a decision. So that way you're going in with your executive function in order, playing out different scenarios, but also knowing the cost, the potential upfront cost, the return on investment, and the liability. These are not decisions to be made like, oh, let's see, this is how I want my coffee, or this is what I want for lunch. They're totally different. They're totally different decisions.
Mm-hmm. In your podcast, I believe you talk a lot about that purpose piece and creating a more fulfilling life. Correct. With that in mind, do you have any advice to give physicians who feel stuck and maybe want to explore real estate but don't know where to begin? That's a heavy question.
It is a heavy question. The opportunities I've had in the past just kind of fell on my lap. And I was at a good place to say, yeah, let's take that on. Now, this was, of course, before kids. Now that my kids are getting older, I might reapproach that because it aligns with where I'm at in life. So I think that if you want to get into real estate, there are so many things online. There are other physicians that have podcasts. There are that as to how they got into their journey through real estate. There are great audiobooks. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is still an all-time favorite. Mm-hmm. It just gives you the idea of what is a liability versus an asset in just very simple terms. Mm-hmm. But also make sure that it aligns with something that you want to do and is true to where you are in life and what you see, like your core values. So it all goes back to being in a clear space, knowing what you want. Yeah. And then being able to make decisions from there. I think real estate is great. I think houses are beautiful. I think buildings are beautiful. I appreciate the services they provide and the architecture. So I can see myself going back to that as my kids get older, because then they can start doing things that are age appropriate. But previously, all the energy went into the family, mm-hmm. and so that's where we decided to liquidate what we had invested in. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So tied into like the purpose piece, so like feeling stuck. Yeah. Oftentimes when we feel stuck, we're not focused as much on the purpose, but we're more of the process.
Yeah.
And that purpose can draw us to there. And when you said it aligns with your, like making decisions that align with your life, you mentioned core values. These are the things that are going to pull you through good times and bad times. And I talk about this a lot with, prospective investors who are, where do I get started? How do I get started? What do I do? Well, it always comes down to, where do you want to end up? Mm-hmm. Who do you want to become in that moment, right? Those are the goals. The goals are what make who we are. So all of these things can help us come out of these spots where maybe we're stuck, where we're, feeling down or trapped in an identity. just being able to open up and see the opportunities all around us. And real estate is a great way. It's not the only way, but hey, this is the Real Estate Mogul MD, so why not talk about real estate, right?
Absolutely. And again, I think it's a great way to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
Because gone are the days where you can rely solely on a 401k or savings. I mean, money in a savings account, can't just put all your money there, and you really should be diversifying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think painting is very relaxing, cathartic. When I get frustrated, again, before kids, they're still quite young. It would be nothing to repaint a room in a weekend.
Yeah.
Some people have a Zen garden. I like sweeping, So, what you're saying about moving dirt, absolutely. There's nothing better than getting your hands dirty, connecting with the earth, and just doing something physical outside of what maybe you don't normally do.
Yeah.
And so there are all different possibilities with real estate and what we're discussing.
Yeah. It's fascinating you're like a surgeon who likes to fix toilets, how these things come together. It's just relaxing. For me, putting on some, what's now called earbuds, put these things in your ear, some earplugs, and go out with a backpack blower or something, or weed trimmer. It's just, it makes me happy when it's by choice. I love that piece. So we've got to talk about so many things here, kind of inspiring, but sometimes it's a little downing though too when you start talking about some things that aren't always talked about. But those are the things that are helpful, and others can learn to help others and catch things and even shine that light in your own path. Maybe you're not even knowing that you're trapped in this identity thing yourself, or kind of like this energy that just keeps going towards something when it should be going towards something else. Where can people connect with you to learn more about you and your journey and take a listen to the podcast?
Sure. So theworthyphysician.com, that is my website. It has the blogs and all the podcast episodes, and then also on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then can they just search your name on LinkedIn?
They can. They can.
And the name is in the description too. So, and it's been an absolute blast talking with you. And I may just go throw some earbuds in and go outside with a backpack blower now. I don't know.
I would need a snow shovel for my driveway, but that's just later on this afternoon. Yeah. Just get outside and do something that is not within four walls and not within the norm. It's good energy to mix it up.
That's amazing. So thanks again for your time, and everybody check out the website, theworthyphysician.com. Check out the podcast and just give a listen. I think that's the biggest thing that you could do, is get outside of the box, get outside of the process. No matter if you're in a W-2 or in a private practice, wherever you're at, get outside of the box. The world is great outside of the box. Finding that path that aligns with your core values and the things that you do can also align with ways to find these alternative paths of investing. And that's just a magical place. So until next time, this is the Real Estate Mogul MD. Thank you to Dr. Sapna Shah-Haque for sharing her insights on finding purpose and exploring real estate as an alternative path for physicians. Be sure to check out her podcast at theworthyphysician.com for more empowering content.